why could we not apply the bottle return system into e-commerce?
Bonjour, and welcome to Mission First, the podcast to get inspired and to learn from successful entrepreneurs who are building a sustainable future for our planet and its people. I am Gilles Toussaint, your host and the founder of GT Impact, a growth and digital marketing agency working only with companies making a positive difference in this world. Lots of entrepreneurs dream of disrupting a market with a real innovation, but few are those who manage to achieve that. The circular economy seems like the perfect solution for our future, but it's not easy to develop the right product with the right business model at the right time. You have to find the right early adopters, and sometimes factors like market, society trends, or even political decisions play a major role on the timing. Today I have the chance to talk to Jonne Hellgren, the founder and CEO of Repack. He launched his company Repack in 2011, and from what he told me, he launched it way too early. He went through some difficult phases, like changing co-founders and the early team, but he hung on, and now his company is trusted by more than 150 brands like Zalando, Levis, the AvocadoStore, and he's revolutionizing the packaging industry for e-commerce. Repack makes packaging which is reusable and returnable. E-commerce companies use the Repack packaging to send their products to consumers, which can return the Repack packaging for free from anywhere in the world just by posting it in a postbox. Then Repack check it, clean it, and then it's ready to be used again. And the best thing, consumers are rewarded for sending the package back, so it's a way for companies to increase their user engagement. Thanks to their solution, companies sending products can save up to 80% of CO2 emission compared to classic packaging. They won more than 14 design and sustainability awards since their launch, so today we are going to talk about how to disrupt the market and end packaging trash. Jonne will share some advice about product design, circular economy, and how to find the right customers. He will also share some tips about shareholder agreement and how to best set the terms between co-founders when you start a company, and what kind of mistakes you should avoid in that case. Can you relate to these topics? Then without further ado, let's start this episode together. One small comment before we dig into this episode. This podcast is like a masterclass with long episodes where we talk in detail about the challenges and learnings of every guest. But if your time is limited and you still want to get advice about growing your business and having a greater positive impact on this planet, I've just created a best-of series with a special format. 10 audio episodes between 3 to 10 minutes, shorter than a coffee break. They are only hands-on advice shared by the guests of this podcast. You can receive these best-of episodes by signing up for my newsletter, in which I also send a text summary of the do's and don'ts shared by each guest after every episode. So if you want to get these condensed and useful tips for and from successful entrepreneurs with a sustainable mission, just go to my website, gtimpact.com, or find the link in the description of this episode and sign up for the newsletter. Jonne, thank you very much for being here today. So you are the founder of Repack. Have I explained it correctly, or do you have to correct me a bit to explain what Repack is doing?
Your explanation was very good. I mean, Repack is a simple solution to reduce trash where reusable packaging is simply returned by post to be reused. And this can be done anywhere in the world just by simply folding an empty packaging into letter size and dropping it into a post box. Once returned, users are rewarded for doing so, often with a voucher for their next purchase, and the packaging is reused. Our focus is on fashion and soft goods. So, and market-wise, we are operational in Europe and North America at the moment.
Could you tell us a bit that's what you are doing, and what's your specific mission with Repack? What's your purpose?
Well, we actually, when we founded a company, it had nothing to do with reusable packaging. We founded a sustainable design agency. I myself have a sustainability consultancy background, and we founded a design agency with 2 industrial designers with the goal of combining environmental analysis into a product design process. And during the first years of working together, we were working with Finnish Post Office and came up with we spent a lot of time in the warehouses and saw the rise of e-commerce. So we came up with the idea, one of the inventor of our team really came up with the idea of why could we not apply the bottle return system into e-commerce. So we've grown up with the bottle return system in Finland. It's part of our culture, really. So that was the initial idea, and for 2-3 years, Repack was just a side project within the company. So while we were working with different design projects for different companies, Repack was a side project. But it started developing and became more and more appealing and not just as an idea, but actually something that we slowly started putting more and more focus on.
So just to also give an idea of how big the company is right now, you told me you have about 15 employees.
Yeah, we currently have a team of about 15 people, both in Europe and North America. We started with a team of 3, but only in the past year and a half, we've grown quite significantly with the help of Horizon 2020 funding from the European Union. Got 2 million euros from the EU to develop and scale the service, and that of course helped us to hire new team members to commercialize and develop the solution further. So currently we're working with over 150 brands and retailers in Europe and North America. And last year's revenues were on the region of around 600,000 euros. So while it's still very much in a early growth phase, I'd say.
Okay, and before, so you got this grant recently, and between 2011 and this grant, how have you funded the project?
Through different grants, couple of angel investors, and through different project development projects that we had. So because we started as a design agency, so we had that both helping us financially, but also it proved to be a bit of a distraction. So we couldn't focus. We were not able to focus on Repack as much as we wanted to because of the kind of the financial constraints, but also mentally. When you're trying to develop kind of a solution that doesn't exist, I think it requires a lot of groundwork and testing and workshopping and testing your ideas, getting feedback, understanding what works, what doesn't. But if there is, like we did, we had it was both helping us because we had projects from different customers that created revenues for us. They had nothing to do with reusable packaging. So we only did those for financial reasons. And for any startup, it's a difficult position to be in where your only focus should be to find and create a new disruptive solution. But if you are not able to focus on that 100%, if you don't have the financial means to provide for the team members, then the development will suffer and slow down for sure.
And So that's a very interesting part because I think lots of entrepreneurs or people who want to start a project or are starting something as a side project, whatever on they like you on your agency as freelancers, you said it, it was more like a distraction. It was not easy to focus, even if you wanted to focus more on it. Do you remember one key decision or one key adjustment or what really happens so that at some point you managed to say, okay, now we're gonna focus only on Repack? Was there a major event or decision?
Yeah, that was in 2016. We got an angel investor and a 250,000 grant. So we had about 400,000 euro budget for the next year, which at that time for us, we thought it was a lot. And after 12 months, we hadn't really made much progress. We had a founding team of 3 persons, and my conclusion was that either the founding team needs to readjust the mindset of what we're going to do, or we need new team members. At the startup, you're always learning. You're always doing things that you don't know what you're really doing. You just have to do them. You have to learn new things, new skills. Especially in the early days, you are very much at the deep end without knowing how to swim. That's something you will only discover when you get there. If you are that kind of a person who learns to swim or goes back to the shore.
Yeah, or die in the water. So I guess that you're referring to in that part, one of the advice you sent me was, for the entrepreneurs out there, was make sure you have a shareholder agreement in place. So is that what you're referring to at that time? Did you actually change the team? And basically what was the biggest challenge at that time and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, because we didn't set out to found a startup. We founded a design agency. So we didn't have any shareholders agreement. We had talked about it, but because we didn't really have a framework or understanding how to set that up, so we just pushed it back and thought that we will, if a situation arises where somebody is leaving the team or we need to make changes, then we'll come to an agreement. But of course, when you are at that situation when those changes are going to need to be done, then the dynamics have changed quite a bit.
So what was the outcome at that time? Like you were 3 who remained?
No, from the founding team of 3, I was the only one who remained at Repack full time. I mean, we still work with 2 other founders, but they are more on a consultative role because they have the know-how of the physical demands of reusable packaging. So it'd be stupid not to use them, and they still remain as small, have a small shareholding in the company, but not in the capacity that they had in the early days.
So have you created, do you still have are there 2 companies now? There is Repack and there is the previous design agency?
Yeah, the design agency is a separate company. We don't have a formal relationship. The Repack doesn't own anything of the design agency as such. But the two other co-founders who are no longer part of the day-to-day operations are still minority shareholders at Repack. So that is the solution that we came up with, where they got to focus on product design as industrial designers, and I, together with the board of directors at Repack, set out to build a more commercially minded team to scale the service.
If you had to start this over again, because this is really interesting, I'm growing an agency as well, and we are at the time right now, for example, where we like start to have partners, and it's hard to say at the beginning, okay, are these going to be co-founders or employees or freelancers, or and I know, for example, like my goal is to help companies like scale and grow with digital marketing and video marketing, but I know as well that you probably know it, that services are not scalable, not easily. So at some point, I really like the future. I think is always to either build a product the way you did, or to like build a more scalable service like trainings or something, online trainings or something like that. What would be, if you would start over again now, what would be the advice you would give in terms of like shareholder agreement to the person starting this kind of things in parallel and with different co-founders, and that is not sure yet where you're going?
Nobody is sure where you're going to go. Things will change. Plans will change. Your personal situations will change. You may get a cool job offer at a different company. Your partner may want to move to a different continent. Life comes and happens. So for those situations, I strongly advise every company founder to figure out that what if I decide to leave this company, or what if my partner decides to leave this company? How do we resolve that situation? What happens to the stock that they have? That is the key question, because if you have, for example, a shareholder that has 30% of the company at an early stage where it hasn't generated any revenues, for example, and then they decide to leave, then it's unfair to others that this person who is leaving the company would still own 30% of the company, while the others would stay and build the company, and this one person who has left would still benefit from all the future proceedings. Of course, they may have had a significant impact at an early stage, so it may not be possible that they give out all their stock, for example. But these situations kind of need to be discussed when things are fine.
Yeah.
So that everyone feels that, okay, this is a fair way to resolve a situation if and when it arises.
You said something very interesting, is you said like you need to wait. It's unfair to leave, or you have an unfair advantage if you leave before the company is even like making revenue or is profitable, let's say. Is the solution for you then, if you were to start again, to go for like vested equities, not even in terms of years, but in terms of objectives of like you get a part of the shares? So for vested equities, for those who listen to, are like a part you can vest, and so gain some equities, earn some equities depending on the time you work on, and you can have as a progressive model where you earn it every month or every year, or you can have a cliff where it's after 3 years or 5 years, for example. What is, if you were to start the company now, what do you think would be the best model for you?
Well, I think that also depends on the role of the person. So if they are a commercial person, then probably some kind of a revenue target would be sensible, but that revenue target wouldn't make sense for if you had a software developer or a designer. So then that becomes harder to figure out, okay, so what is it based on time, or is it based on a target or some other target? I think this is the kind of discussion that is very difficult to give general advice, because it's dependent on the role and kind of what the company is set out to do. But now there is so much more resources available online that you can look for how and of course expensive lawyers will always advise you, but kind of have those basic principles written down and agreed between the shareholders, that what if I get sick and I'm unable to participate anymore? Yeah,
that's also a case scenario I would not have thought of, but yeah. Okay, thank you very much for at least it's good to know that the different options. For example, I never thought about the fact that you could potentially have different objectives for different kind of persons and roles. I knew about we used in my previous startup, we used the time investment and the experience of people combined, and we had and this is how we shared the equities at the beginning. But we didn't make the mistake of not talking about it when it was not fine, so it was good. when 3 out of 6 left the company after a few months. But that's not easy to, as you said, to manage to set goals that are fair for everyone and based on that. But it's good that the options are there, and as you said, now online there's a lot of references. One of the things I wanted to jump into now, because we are still talking about the beginning of the company, and the second advice you sent me was don't be too early in the market. It doesn't matter how great your solution is or how dedicated your team is. And you told me a bit more about your advice here. So can you elaborate a bit about that?
Yes, usually the first rule of successful startup is that the team is everything. But I would still say that the market is everything. No matter how talented and good your team is, if there is no market, there is nothing. But then also that, in a way, if you are too early, but you're in that situation where you don't need to draw salary, for example, then it's a good time and space to develop the solution and test things that necessarily don't scale. Whereas when the market, and then you're ready when the market arises and appears. But this is, of course, a time that we don't know in advance when that is going to happen.
So that brings me to the third advice you sent me when you said, make sure you work with the right customers, not 50% right, but 100%. Can you iterate on that?
Looking at our experience, first of all, Finland is a very small market in anything, let alone e-commerce. So for us, finding first customers who were interested in the solution and had enough delivery volume and were developed enough in order to kind of test something new was a big challenge. So we ended up talking to several marketplaces of big corporations who were mildly interested and would be prepared to give us an opportunity to test something out if we gave it for them for free.
Okay, so is that the first the first big let's say big pilot you had? You basically had to develop the product for free for them, or to offer?
No, because we said no to free opportunities because what we are developing is hardware. There are costs associated with it. So if a customer is not committed enough to put any money on the table, then they are probably not the right customer for you. You are not solving a problem for them that is of enough significance if they are not willing to pay for it. So that's the first sign of them not being the right type of customer for you. And also we were looking for peer-to-peer marketplaces. We were talking to them, and where reusable packaging would make a lot of sense, but we had no idea, and we still don't know really how to create a business model in there. So we spent months and months talking to those players because they were big companies with big volumes, but we simply couldn't figure out a business model in there. So we wasted a lot of time talking to wrong type of customers. The right type of customers, when we found them, proved to be really small. So they didn't really create any revenues from the service, but they were enough. They were kind of those crazy innovators in a way that they were willing to put money on developing a solution that works for them, that then and we at the same time saw that these are type of customers where that there are so many of them that we can then scale the solution that we develop for them to other similar customers.
And is that what you meant as well when you said something very interesting in I think on the Change Now like conference stage, where you said that different stages have different challenges, and that like multi-billion companies need different requirements to work with than small companies like your early adopters. When you said you tried a bit of both, the small ones are the most interesting for us. Is it just for this stage right now, and are you starting to slowly progress with the biggest one? Because I mean, you have Zalando, for example, or I saw H&M as well. Like that starts to be like big fish out there. So what was your approach to go from the small to the big ones?
Well, the small ones are quite easy because they are in the field that we are in. They were the sustainably minded entrepreneurs who had started a brand or circular jeans brand or sustainable fashion or something like that. So for us, if they were not interested in what we do, then I don't think we would have had, then that would have been a sign that we don't have really anything except a nice idea, but doesn't even interest the hardcore founders of sustainable fashion companies. With those, the good thing about those is that they punch above their weight in terms of being cool and resonating with the right type of audience. So many other founders who work in sustainable fashion see that, okay, this brand, Mud Jeans, adopted Repack. What is that? We want to find out. So like with any segment, you buy from each those small companies work, of course, as a reference to other similar type of brands. And then the next stage is going to kind of early majority. It's still traditional model of innovators, then early majority of more established, bigger companies with sustainable mindset. And then we are coming and with every segment they buy from, when they are, it's easier for them to buy if they see similar brands have bought. And of course, the difficulty there is also always to have the first customer from that segment. So when a year and a half ago, when we, at the same time, we started working with H&M and Zalando, kind of doing the phase one of reusable packaging with them, that led to a host of approaches from other global brands and retailers who are looking at what their competitors are doing. But you can't go from working with a small sustainable fashion brand to a global brand who are, of course, also looking at what size of a partner they are going to bed with and how reliable. And so those discussions take time. They follow you for a number of years, how things are progressing, how you're growing, what are your references saying about you. They do probably a lot of work in the background that you don't even know that they've been talking to your customers. And
is there, in that case, did you have a specific like follow-up strategy, or were you, because it's true, like with these big like giants, the bigger the company, the more like resources they have, the longer it takes to take decisions, but they can follow you for a few years because they have enough, basically, like they can have a sustainability manager whose role is just to have a look at the state of the art out there and what is going on. Did you have a follow-up approach every 6 months to see, hey, like to contact the same person and talk about your progress, or have you just waited that they got back to you?
No, we do have you have a sales process that you follow, and you have regular newsletters, and going back to seeing like what if now is the time to continue the discussion, but it's often quite one-sided discussion. You are knocking the door quite many times before you get the response, and the response is usually it's not a priority at the moment. Let's come back to it in 6 months' time. So yeah, don't give up. Though in time they will turn. Not all of them, but a big portion of those, of course, will turn into customers as well. But the kind of the best sales tool is always a competitor doing it or a reference group doing it, and that being published and resonating and spreading in the media.
Are you actually like trying to boost these word of mouth by for example, doing some LinkedIn advertising strategies or boosting some posts on social media when you have some success with customers, to just amplify that these successes so that it arrives to the to the ears of the other companies?
Yeah, we do, because it's the best kind of sales tool that we have is a launch with a well-known brand. And for them, it's also a marketing tool to talk about the initiatives that they're doing in terms of sustainability. So we never really have problems in getting the PR out of a launch with a brand.
Are you working with a PR agency in that case, or do you do it yourself?
We haven't. Well, no, we have not. No. We talked about it. We thought about we tried some small ones, but have found that it's so expensive. That's the one thing. I haven't found a good fit. Probably will do at some point this year. But also, of course, when you work with the bigger companies, then they have their own marketing and PR departments that put a lot of effort in getting the stories out there, and that's been kind of great help to us, because we see Repack as an enabler, kind of like Intel Inside or Gore-Tex kind of thing, that it's not that Zalando is using Repack, it's Zalando reducing packaging trash with reusable packaging, and Repack enables that.
Yeah, and you used a lot, like in that case on your side, the easiest way to, and like the cheapest way to promote it was like you are often on fairs and conferences, basically talking about your successes and Repack, like as the way you're doing it right now. Thank you for all these tips and sharing your experience about that. It's very helpful. One thing I wanted to talk about, and that you mentioned in the advices you gave me, I wanted to talk about the product itself. Like I will share the link, of course, to your website on our webpage, because I think it's very interesting to see how the product look like now. I actually, like when I thought about, I thought about it was just kind of like a mail envelope, but it's kind of like looking more like a small bag actually, and it's also very interesting to see on your website how the design has evolved from PVC, PP, RPP. It was made in Finland at some point. Now it's made in China, and you won a lot of sustainability and design awards, like the German Sustainability Award in 2020, for example. What's something that intrigues me is how did you decide to go, for example, to made in Finland to made in China?
Two reasons: cost and quality.
And quality as well.
Absolutely. Of all the manufacturing partners we made Repacks in, and when it was Finland, Latvia, Bulgaria, Vietnam, Turkey, I think at some point as well. The best quality and the most competitive price, with also has come from China. we are working on changing that. We're not big fans of what is happening in China, so we'd rather have the manufacturing done somewhere else. But once you've built supply chain, it's difficult and slow to change that. Yeah, because Repacks are currently the design, it's handmade product, so all the sewing and that, we don't really have that kind of know-how and skills and workforce, at least in the Nordic countries, doesn't really exist.
You mean when you said it's still handmade, and you don't have the knowledge or the know-how to do it, to do it in Finland? Does it mean like in China they are able to do it and do on a more scalable process? Or is it like the way you design basically the product itself that has to be handmade even in China?
Well, it doesn't have to be, but they are used to manufacturing bags and sewing in high quantities and high volumes. They're used to delivering European companies with required quality standards and different kind of and have all the kind of certificates to back up also the environmental and social part of that. So in terms of the quality that we get from there is it's been the best so far.
Something you said, I read on LinkedIn, one of your posts, you were saying major breakthroughs and the biggest mistakes are often made after a few drinks. And you shared a very nice, a very funny video about that. I'll share it on the web page as well. And he said, in case you are wondering, yes, big part of early innovation at Repack happened intoxicated. Some design ideas weren't as good in the morning after all. Can you explain a bit more about that?
Yeah, so when we founded the company, like I said, it was a design agency, and Repack was a side project that we usually spent one evening a week having beers and drawing different stuff on the wall, depending on who is the user, kind of creating user personas, thinking about how the cycle actually works, how the business model, how does the money go around in a model like this. So I remember us sitting around a table and having €3 on the table, and then we were moving it around, one being a consumer, one being a brand, and one being Repack, and seeing how the money actually travels in that system. The packaging designs as well, going through those, drawing them on the wall, criticizing or congratulating on major breakthroughs that may not have been such big breakthroughs in the morning or when you actually went to talk to a manufacturer. It was the most fun time of the whole journey, I'd say, in that sense, because everything was possible. There were no limitations because you didn't understand too much about the limitations of possible customers or supply chains or logistics operators. So quite uplifting time in a way where everything is open.
And
creating anything new and opening up your mind always helps.
Yeah, I agree. As soon as you don't do it the whole time and you don't need it the whole time, then it can help boost your creativity sometimes. One of the advice you sent me was don't worry about the initial unit cost, as your solution will develop and become cheaper as you get better. And I guess as you just mentioned how business model work, the different types of business models you have imagined. And here, can you elaborate a bit on that, about how the cost has evolved? And I mean, were you worried about that at the beginning and then you realized you should not have been worried about it?
I don't remember if we were worried about it, but I do remember that when we were first manufacturing the bags, the unit cost per bag was something like 7 or 8 euros. And if the revenue per cycle was 3 or 4, then I think in the beginning we thought, okay, that's fine because we will earn the cost of the manufactured bag during the life cycle of the product. But the unit cost, well, if you make something for 7 or 8 and you sell it for 3, of course it doesn't make any sense. So
even if you reuse it, because that was the idea behind what you just said, right?
Yeah. So it does make sense in the long term, but at that cost point, you would need to be seriously well-funded operation to carry that initial capital investment, and we definitely were not that at the time. So I don't know why. Maybe we didn't think about it too much, or whatever the reason was. But I mean, it could have been that we would have had someone really strict on kind of a cost controller type, which probably exists in any big company. So the controller would probably have said that, look, guys, there's no way this initiative is going to get funded when the unit cost is this high. And that would have killed the project before it even got started.
And what happened then that made it like possible right now in terms of product and costs?
Different design and moving the manufacturing to Asia. So we improved the design based on the initial experiences of our first customers, what works, what doesn't, what is necessary, what is not necessary. And then also kind of finding, when we launched the project, we got visibility, of course, and then people with know-how on sourcing from different countries and suppliers approached us, and we got some help on building the supply chain and finding manufacturers that helped us to also to develop the solution, but make it in a much cheaper price than that was back then.
Okay.
So again, the references and the visibility of the service helped us to find the right people to help us to the next step.
That's also a side effect of like basically talking about your brand. And I'm insisting to so many CEOs sometimes that like that don't promote enough their companies, and like that's so important. And you have so many like side effects of just talking about your companies everywhere. And I know it's time consuming, of course.
I mean, it's most time consuming, and but it's if we had decided to be in stealth mode, as was the style of some startups more back then, 2013, 2014, we would not have been exposed to the people who find something like this interesting and are interested and willing and have skills to help us to take the next step. So, and also coming from Finland with no market, no real e-commerce market, it was clear from, at least to me from day one, that we need to be at events speaking about this and try to get as many speaking engagements around Europe as possible and anywhere really. So that's a big time investment, but without it we wouldn't have built the network or the brand recognition and won the awards or done anything really had we stayed in here and developed it in stealth mode. Absolutely vital to get your name out there and push the message, because it's at least for us, it's been absolutely critical.
Yes, that's a good advice, and I totally agree with it. So, talking about the price, so I have let's say a marketing sales question here, because I saw on your website, it's the price per unit are already on the website. I think it's like the cheapest one is 275 per cycle euro. How did you come with the business model at the end that I saw that it's actually not the brands who pay for it, but the brands offer their customers to usually like have a repack of in that case, a sustainable, reusable packaging and to pay for it. So how did you come up with that solution with the brands instead of having had them like just buying it and charging more? And on a marketing side point of view, should you put the price on the website or not? Because, of course, putting the price on the website will deter some customers, but also like save some time for you. So what was this intentional on your side?
So the business model, because Repack is definitely at a premium price point when you compare it to any other packaging, single-use packaging out there. And the reason for that is that we cover the cost of the return, and that's where the biggest cost arises. It's not the packaging itself, it's the being able to return it from anywhere in the world, whether that causes the high cost of it. But given that it's around €3, then it was quite clear from early discussions with brands that it's too high price for them to ship all orders in Repack. So together with the first customers, we came up with a solution. Okay, well, let's give your customers the choice to opt in, choose it and pay for it. And that makes it free for the brand. The brand itself doesn't actually pay anything to use Repack. So it was a cost-driven decision, a conclusion maybe, inevitable.
And the customers are now willing to pay for it. That's also the good thing that has probably changed the past years.
Some are not, and it depends how it's implemented on the website, how many do so. And that is something that we are still learning through every new customer implementation. And then what comes to putting the prices on the website, we only recently put them out there. So for a long time, we haven't had the prices in there. They're still not well presented on the site itself, I feel. But why we're going that way is though that I believe, just need to make things easy. I personally hate going to a website and not seeing the price of a product or service that is available there. So doing that ourselves or not showing the price is annoying me personally. But also that make buying easy.
So when you were talking about like logistic as well, and you said, you mentioned manufacturing in China, and on your website, you're also very clear about the impact of your company. And there is something that you're saying, and very, very like out loud also on LinkedIn, that you are not a carbon neutral company in a way that like what on your website people can see the impact of the project, because you've partnered with the Upright project, which is a company that quantifies the net impact of companies. So basically they evaluate what are the positive and negative impact of your company on the environment, society, health, and knowledge. And you have a positive impact, like a bigger positive impact than companies producing single-use packaging. But then you talk about the carbon offsetting in general. When you said, when I read your post here, you said we are not carbon neutral. Since 2015, the United Nations Climate Change Conference, more and more firms are communicating about the carbon neutral strategies. But most of the time it implies carbon compensation programs, but not necessarily a real trajectory of meeting the 1.5 scenario. And then, you talk about the issue of how carbon, like the ton of carbon, is priced. And like also the other issue is that like lots of companies saying they are carbon offsetting are actually less willing to just progress and evolve in the right direction on their side, because they're just paying for the damages that they have. So can you iterate a bit on that?
So when we were founding the company, I was doing exactly this type of work of calculating carbon footprints of different products and different systems. And the end result was usually that, okay, now we understand where the emissions come from. What should the company do about that? And usually the answer was that, well, now we know. I mean, that's fine. Now we know. But to do something about it, that's difficult. And usually nothing happened. And I got quite frustrated about it, that information was actually the objective, to understand where the emissions come from, not the starting point of actually starting to reduce them. And still seems that the many companies simply calculate their carbon footprint and then buy carbon credits and say, okay, now we've done our bit. Now we are carbon neutral, and use that in their greenwashing PR and stuff like that, but actually not doing anything about the emissions. For example, when we speak to a prospective brand about using Repack, and many brands at the moment are highlighting the fact that they are carbon neutral and saying that this is sustainability is really important to us and blah, blah, blah. However, when it comes to then doing something about it, for example, offering their customers an option to use reusable packaging when they shop online and paying for it so that the brand doesn't have to pay anything themselves, many of them still come back like, oh, this is nice, but it's not a priority for us. So, okay, so you're a brand that is really pushing the message of you being carbon neutral and having the sustainability projects highlighted on your site. But when it actually comes to offering a solution and putting it out there and changing the way you work as a company and your logistic processes, then it suddenly is no longer a priority. So to me, carbon offsetting is the easy way out of not having to do anything. You don't have to do anything. You just say, like, we are carbon neutral, we are responsible, this is important to us, and then carrying on business as usual. And that will not, it's not enough to reduce emissions. So, I mean, European Union has a really ambitious target of over 50% carbon reduction in little over 10 years, or 2030. That will not be achieved through offsetting. We need to do, all of us, or every company, every individual will have to change their habits.
Yeah, I agree totally. Like because it's just offsetting is we had the talk also with Lubomila from Plan A. Is a way, but that should be the last way you use to basically be more carbon neutral, because it's so easy for all these companies, and it's just logical, right? We are more and more on the planet. You can't, like, everybody cannot just keep on paying for the negative impact they have in their environment, because the way carbon offsetting works is usually like you pay for having a company who has a positive impact, to support a positive initiative on their environment. So, for example, planting trees. But if you keep on destroying forests and if you keep on polluting everywhere, you can't plant trees everywhere in the world, because it's just being more packed right now. So I totally agree with you.
And I mean, it can be that one day we will also offset some of our emissions, or all of our emissions. But before we do that, we need to it's kind of the last on the list.
What was the biggest thing you've changed on the company level to adjust to try to decrease your carbon emissions? Was it less travel by plane? Less? Are you all vegan? I don't know.
Well, now for the past 12 months we've stopped flying. Yes.
You stopped flying? Oh yeah.
For the past 12 months, yeah. And we see that the impact that our service has on reducing carbon emissions from e-commerce packaging far outweigh the emissions that we have from our own operations. I'm not saying that we shouldn't pay attention to what we do as a company, but we founded Repack because we wanted to kind of also set an example that things can be done differently in a relatively simplistic way. So also to kind of inspire others, okay, well, reusable packaging is possible. It is possible to create new business models that are now called circular economy, but didn't exist really back in 2013, 12, 13, 14. And also to show that actually there is a growing consumer base who want this. And brands who offer the more sustainable, innovative options benefit from doing that because they make their customers happier than those who don't offer any new innovative, sustainable options or whatever. So kind of setting an example was one of the main drivers why we founded the company, and this being a potentially kind of a high volume, scalable operation, then the benefits of and the carbon reductions that our service creates far outweigh what we do as a team of 15 people.
I saw on your website that you have an NPS, a Net Promoter Score of 72, and you said within, like, I don't remember the exact number, but it was a bit more than 3,000 customers or clients. These NPS score, do they come from like brands from you, or are they from like the end users, the one who sent the package back?
They're from the end users, and that was kind of the most important thing. Also, going back to when we started, was that it doesn't really matter what the brand owner says about Repack, whether they like it or whether they hate it. If their customers come back with that sort of figures that 70% of their customers are giving it a score of 9 or 10 out of 10, then you'd be quite a stupid brand not to listen to that customer base and not offer it. In the beginning, for us, that was the sign that, okay, we are getting such a high end user rating that we have really touched something here that has potential to become a bigger thing.
What is a touch point where people are actually like sending you back this score?
So when you return an empty Repack, you get an automatic email saying thanks for your Repack return. It may include a reward, for example, a voucher for your next purchase, and also comes with a request to give us feedback.
Okay, 70% of the users, so like Net Promoter Score is basically like calculated by how many promoters you have for your company. Would answer the question, would you recommend Repack to one of your colleague or your friend? On a scale of 1 to 10, and you 70% of the people said give you a 9 or a 10. So which is for the people who are not used to it, super high. When I talk about, for example, you can compare the NPS score of different industries, and I've had a look yesterday, and the highest average one is 71, and it's for education and trainings. And if you take, for example, logistic and transportation, the average is 29. So having an NPS of like 72 on your case is super high, and this is why sometimes I work also with Retrace as a client, and talking to try to do the same thing that help trace the supply chain in a more like a sustainable and transparent way to show like companies who want to be really sustainable that they are sustainable and fair to their like employees, and it's kind of like crazy to see that you have to insist on the fact that people really liked and really care about it. And here, actually, you are putting a number on that. And that's what I find fantastic, that like knowing that the people are so enthusiastic about it once they try it.
Yeah. Sure, and especially in the beginning, it's more important for any new service developer to find a group of 100 who absolutely love it than a group of 10,000 who kind of don't really have an opinion about it. It's okay.
That brings me to the basically the last questions I wanted to ask you, that I ask all my guests. What is the best advice you've been given as an entrepreneur?
Don't listen to advice.
Don't listen to advice. Yeah.
I don't know. Especially in the beginning, we were looking for people who know this, but didn't take too long to realize that actually no one does. We were doing something that hadn't been done before. I think one of the good advice is that always thank for the advice that you get, no matter how good or bad it is, because for that person sharing the advice, it's they sincerely want to help you. And if you've heard the same advice 1,000 times, it's the first time they say it. So always thank the person giving you advice, no matter how useful or useless it is.
Then I'm thanking you right now then for all the advice you already shared today. Which book would you recommend entrepreneurs like you to read, or which book have you like read recently that you really liked?
Quite a few, of course. Jim Collins and Good to Great, for example. But then Hard Things About Hard Things. That's quite good.
Hard Things About Hard Things.
Yeah, I was advised to read it by a similar podcast like this. And I read it, and it was quite interesting because it talks about those things that usually only a startup founders come across. And they are moments in any entrepreneur's life that are quite rare, and there are no easy solutions to. But like going back to changing a founding team, or changing, getting rid of an employee that is not performing, is that. Like in that book, what it said is that deep down, it's like a relationship. Deep down, you know things are not working out. And you keep pushing that feeling away, postponing the decision. But ultimately, the day will come when you need to make the big decision of parting ways. And at that point in time, it feels bad. But the next day, when you wake up, you know that it was a good decision and should have been done a long time ago.
On the same topic, what is one podcast or influencer or blog that you would recommend to read or to listen to, or to watch?
I only listen to football podcasts these days, just to get my mind off work.
Which team are you a fan of?
I follow Everton, and then, of course, Finnish national team. We finally made it to Euro 2020. I hope it's going to be 21 now.
Can you tell us one thing about you that I wouldn't be able to find out online? Besides that you are an Everton fan.
I think that's a good one. We will let that. When I was thinking that before this podcast, are you going to ask me about how passionate I am about reusable packaging? And then I was thinking about how to answer that. And I would say that I'm not passionate about reusable packaging. If I was as passionate about the work that I do as I'm about football, then I think I would have had a mental breakdown like years ago. So like how to work is to have a professional attitude towards work, It's something that's intellectually interesting and stimulating, and you need to do the best you can every day. But if you're invested on that on an emotional level, as you are in a sports team, for example, then that's not good news for you in the long term, because there are so many setbacks, and highs and lows are really high and really low. You need to kind of try and keep it at some sort of manageable level to be able to cope with all the highs and lows that come to you almost on a daily basis.
So is it really what drives you then on like that kept you going, is the fact that you wanted to stay professional and to keep on going with Repack? Or was it something else that was also motivating you?
Well, what's motivating me is that this is definitely a marathon that we are on. It's not a sprint. So to kind of, we are still at an early stage. We're still proving whether reusable packaging actually scales. But it's the both kind of showing that, more sustainable ways are possible, can be done. And then also kind of the intellectual stimulation that doing something that's never been done is quite interesting and rewarding.
It's a great way to end on that note. The final thing, before we say bye, this is your time if you want to say anything to our audience. Of course, I've shared a link of where they can find Repack, where they can find you on LinkedIn. But is there anything specific you want to share about, are you looking for investors? Are you hiring? It's your time right now to share it with our audience.
If I was to not advise, it's more of an encouragement to any, especially those with entrepreneurial skills and background, is that focus on what the world needs in the long term, rather than games or ad optimization. The skills that any entrepreneur, especially those who've had exits already on their backs, put those skills into making the world a better place.
Thank you. That's the best way to end this podcast, and I'm really happy. Thank you very much, Jonne, for sharing your experience, your success, but also the things that didn't work today and all your advice. I wish you all the best in 2021. I'm sure, given everything, like all the signals that I see regarding your customers, that the world is going in a better direction, at least in some ways, and that you have plenty of way to progress and have an impact with Repack. So thank you very much for your time, and I wish you all the best and have a nice day.
Thank you, Charles.
If you like this podcast, there are two things you can do that would mean the world to me. The first thing is to sign up for the podcast newsletter. That way you will be notified of the new episodes, but you will also get a summary of the learnings at the end of every season. Plus, for each episode, you will get the resources and the list of do's and don'ts that every guest shares with me. And finally, you will also get the opportunity to ask our future guests one question in advance. You can sign up for this newsletter on gtimpact.com. The second thing you can do to be super helpful is to recommend this podcast. For that, you can write a review on Apple Podcasts and share the podcast with your friends, other entrepreneurs, and people trying to build a sustainable future. That way, we can all learn together and work on a brighter future for us, our children, and our planet. Thank you very much, and see you next week for the next episode. Have a nice day.